Welcome to In It to Win It. This is Steve Barton, and thank you for tuning in. We are back with our commodities expert, Rick Rule. Rick, thanks for coming back on the show.
Always a pleasure, Steve. Thank you for having me back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, the countdown is going. We are getting very close to the Symposium in Boca Raton, July 23rd through 27th. I'm looking forward to it. I feel like a kid that found out he's going to Disneyland.
I think we're going to do a good job for folks this year. Not that we haven't in years past, but every year we learn a little. Thanks, by the way, to the attendees telling us every year in polls what we could do better and what they liked. We think this is a particularly attractive time for an investment conference around natural resources, because while the headwinds facing natural resources and precious metals issuers, things like increasing interest rates, things like a pending recession, things like political opposition to natural resource development around the world are fairly evident. Other circumstances, like impending supply shortages, when I say impending, 5 years out perhaps, and valuations that are in historic senses extremely attractive, means that in addition to having a lot of lessons to teach this year, I think that the experience that investors will have with the common shares of some of our exhibitors will be especially attractive. And we think both of those are important. We think it's important for us to, in a biblical sense, teach our audience how to fish. But we know that our audience actually prefers us to catch the fish, clean the fish, and serve up the fish with appropriate garnish. And I think we'll take care of both of those wishes this year.
I am looking forward to it. We will be on the live stream. There is a link down in the show notes, and I hope to see you there. It's an affiliate link. Rick has been nice enough to kick back a little bit to the show. So if you're going to go, if you could do support the show, please use the link.
I should note that this is the first year that we've done this live stream, and the live stream participants will have the opportunity to see everything that happens at the show. They won't have the ability to cruise on the Intercoastal Canal and have a cocktail with me, sadly. We're still working on that technology. But in addition, they will have the ability to schedule one-on-one meetings with many of the exhibitors, and they'll have access to the live stream for 6 months following the show, which is very useful. We'll subject you to over 50 hours of programming in 4 days. It's impossible to get all of the information that we work so hard to impart during the 4 days of the conference. Having access to the lessons, having access to the interviews, having access to the issuers for a full 6 months afterwards is a real benefit.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. Robert Friedland, Jim Rickards, Lobo Tigre, Robert Quartermain, Grant Williams. It's going to be fun. Will you, the Silver Symposium is coming up at the end of September. Will you be attending?
I'm not able to do the Silver Symposium, which is unfortunate. Silver is a speculation that has treated me well, and I sort of regard myself at age 70 as the voice of reason in the silver community. The silver message always seems to be that it isn't merely going to go through the roof, it's going to go to the moon. And I think if silver investors and speculators tempered their expectations with a little bit of reality, that they would be better able to participate in the game and enjoy the gains that will come. I would love to participate in that, but sadly I won't be able to. We will almost certainly repeat our Silver Investors Virtual Boot Camp next year. The one that we did last year was, so well attended and so well regarded that we will almost certainly do our own version. And hopefully in the future, I'll be able to participate in the Silver Summit.
Okay, cool. I had an epiphany with watching your Rural Classroom, and I'll put a link down in the show notes. If you guys are not a part of the Rural Classroom, it is really, really cool. Rick interviews one-on-one, and I was thinking I should be interviewing these attendees to the Silver Symposium before I go, right?
Well, certainly interviewing attendees is a good idea. There is a common misperception that, and I think do you mean attendees or exhibitors?
Oh, I'm sorry, exhibitors.
Exhibitors.
That's what you're doing with your symposium, right?
Yeah, I mean, with my symposium, I've decided it's absolutely critical to introduce the attendees to the exhibitors before the event.
Yeah.
It's important for two reasons. People who come to my conference primarily to gauge investment opportunities need to be well prepared. They need to have a list of people that they would like to visit, and importantly, questions that they would like to ask before the conference. An increasingly important part of conferences is one-on-one features, where in addition to listening to the corporate presentation, you have the ability to meet one-on-one with company representatives. It makes better use of your time and their time if you've had a chance before the conference to look at the balance sheet, the income statement, the corporate presentation. And of course, at a conference, a 4-day-long conference, time becomes real estate.
Yeah.
And to the extent that we can make time available, what we call pre-wear, condition our attendees to make the best use of their time at the conference, and then post-wear, post-conference discussions. What we are coming to understand in the conference business and the investor education business is that the conference itself is the focal point for a community. But the community discussion can take place a month and a half before and a month and a half after, and in fact should, for everybody to get full value.
Okay.
I also like your idea of interviewing attendees. The idea, and maybe it was maybe you misspoke as opposed to having it as an idea. But one of the things that struck me for many years is the idea that all of the knowledge at a conference is disseminated from the podium to the masses is ridiculous. At our conference, just the live part of the conference, not the virtual part of the conference, there will be 500 investors, each of whom has probably been fairly successful. Given that they aren't coming to the conference for free, they're paying money. It means that these are applied people. And there is collectively substantially more knowledge in the audience than there is from the podium. So I actually like the idea of a mechanism where you facilitate the discussion from some of the attendees too. And we'll certainly look into that next year by having a chat feature for our conference that is open to any paid attendee before the conference begins, so that in addition to attendees deciding which companies they want to pay attention to, which speakers they want to pay attention to, they can pay attention to which other attendees they want to pay attention to. And I think to the extent that you could interview both issuers and attendees for the Silver Summit, your audience would be well served.
Yeah, that was a slip, but it gave me an idea. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Gave me one too.
Yeah, there you go. Good deal. Good deal. Okay. All right. We got a lot of questions here. Super excited. I organized them here in kind of groupings rather than by listener questions. And I basically took the ones that were asked the most, put them at the top. If we could start out with uranium, we're looking at ACAP Energy in Africa, and they've got a nickel and cobalt in Australia.
I don't know enough about the issuer to comment.
Okay. In Niger, Global Atomic.
Global Atomic I own. I resisted it for a while because it looked like too much attention was being paid to a zinc asset in Turkey, which, while it will generate some cash, isn't to me a prominent reason. However, it has been useful, it being the zinc asset, in reducing dilution. And the Niger asset, the uranium asset, is now proceeding apace. Niger, of course, is a challenging country. So I think that prospective speculators need to pay attention to the jurisdiction that Global Atomic is involved in, and understand, too, that it's a development stage company. This is a decidedly speculative circumstance, but I'm decidedly a speculator. I should also disclaim the fact that my discussions on this show are not evergreen. Things can go wrong in Niger, or things can go right. Understand that these are guidelines, but they're a snapshot in time. The discussion today is about circumstances that exist today. And those circumstances could cease to exist a month from now. So take that into advisement when you're listening to my comments about a company.
Okay. If you gave it a rank, what would it be?
We have Global Atomic at a 5. We are looking to upgrade it to 4. When we get a bit more visibility as to the terms around their construction financing, the fiscal terms in Nigeria, and also any pre-sales into the term market that Global Atomic might enjoy so that we could model their cash flows. If we like those answers, we will likely upgrade it from a 5 to a 4. We are certainly bullish on the uranium sector.
Okay. All right. Also in Niger and Mali and Zambia, Goviex.
Goviex is one that I've avoided, and Goviex is one that I am also long. Now, the circumstance around their successful funding a year and a half ago ended their balance sheet challenges, which were my primary objection to the company. The balance sheet was so bad that I was afraid they wouldn't survive to affect the beneficiation of their assets. They sort of swallowed twice, took some dilution. That's behind them. The stock has fallen since that point in time. So I'm getting the benefit of the additional capital that was raised at a discount to the price that capital was raised at. These are fairly high quality assets. And I would note that Goviex is really named after Govind Friedland, the son of Robert Friedland. One, I think, can be assured that when uranium is truly well established on the pathway, that Robert may, how would you say, bend in and lend a hand. And there is no better natural resource financier on the planet than Robert Friedland.
Yeah, he's got a good mentor. Geez. What number would you give him?
We have Goviex at a 5.
Okay. Energy fuels.
Energy fuels I do not own. They have done a relatively good job, and they are attractive to people because of their U.S. asset base. From my point of view, too much of that asset base is in the form of small, albeit high-grade deposits. I am no fan of small mines. The asset that does attract me is a permitted mill and permitted tailings at Blanding, Utah. The ability to replicate the permitted mill and tailings facility, which is to say getting a tailings facility for uranium through today's regulatory morass, I think is an interesting circumstance, but I do not own Energy Fuels. Let me say, however, that in the type of uranium market that I see coming, U.S. domiciled assets will appeal to U.S. investors, perhaps for jingoistic reasons, but that doesn't matter. I would suspect that if the type of market develops in uranium that I think will develop, that a rising tide will float all ships, but particularly American ships.
Yeah, yeah. We like UEC for that. Okay, Strathmore Plus Uranium Corp. Speaking of America.
I do not own it. I am looking at the exploration potential and the exploration results that they have generated, but I do not follow it. I don't have it rated.
Okay. All right. Moving on to gold and silver. We got a lot of questions on this one, probably the most submitted, and all three of them. I'm not sure how many were mixed up because they didn't add the second word, but Osisko Development, Osisko Mining, and Osisko Royalties.
I think probably the questions came about as a consequence of the fairly unceremonious sacking of the CEO of Osisko Royalty. Okay. They have been fairly opaque as to the reason for that sacking. I was a real fan of Mr. Singh, the CEO who was sacked. There is a supposition on the part of the market, which hasn't been confirmed or denied by any of the three companies, that the fact that he was thanked and excused or allowed to pursue other employment opportunities had to do with the fact that he wanted to liquidate the securities portfolio in Osisko Royalty, which includes a 40% shareholding in Osisko Development Corporation, and thereby make the royalty company a purer royalty company. That almost certainly would have put him in direct conflict with Sean Rosen, the largest shareholder the chairman and the company founder. As I say, this is merely speculation. But given the fact that, at least from my point of view, Mr. Singh was doing an absolutely superb job with Osisko Royalty, it's the only plausible explanation that I can dream up.
Okay. What number would you give the royalty company?
I have Osisko Royalty right now. I had it at 4. I have it at not rated because I need to get some more clarity on the reason for the departure and what the interim CEO, Mr. Martin, plans to do with the company, and perhaps some visibility on who might replace Mr. Martin, who is now at least styled as an interim CEO. There is too much uncertainty. Certainly the valuations in place at Osisko Royalty, if you include the value of the securities held in their portfolio, is very attractive.
Okay. And what about Osisko Mining and Development? That was kind of a shakeup across all of them, right?
I don't own either of the other two. In the exploration side of the business, I'm much more attracted to prospect generation, a less capital intensive model than I am sole risk exploration. And in the development side, I think, I need to say, the Ontario, the Windfall project really attracts me. I'm more nervous about the other projects. But betting against Sean Rosen has not been a very good thing to do for the last 30 years. He's an extraordinarily gifted company builder.
Okay. All right. On to royalties. EMX Royalty. Franco-Nevada recently placed a bet on them, right?
Yes, that's correct. Disclosure of conflicts of interest. I've been an EMX Royalty shareholder since long before it was named EMX Royalty. I've been a shareholder there for almost 20 years, and I remain a committed shareholder. They have a great portfolio of royalties, including producing royalties, but of equal importance, the company has succeeded over 20 years really in merchant banking activities, which is to say that they have seeded other public companies with cash or properties and generated absolutely superb investment returns doing that. And finally, they don't just buy royalties, they create them. The company now has, as I understand it, over 150 exploration projects in various parts of the world funded by other people's money.
Wow.
EMX typically gets $30 or $40 million a year of other people's money spent exploring their projects. It has been an absolutely miraculous stock for me. One of the things that's useful about this is because they generate so much cash themselves, they don't have to dilute. And when you come around to a natural resource bull market, which I believe is coming up, the fact that in prior years they haven't had to dilute means that you get exaggerated upside in EMX. 3 different times during the period of time which I have held EMX, which is to say over 20 years, I've been rewarded with tenfold gains in the stock. Now, admittedly, there have been retraces, higher highs, higher lows. It's been an absolutely miraculous company to own.
Wow. 20 years. Nice catch. Okay. Trident Royalties.
Trident, I don't know enough about to comment.
Okay. Triple Flag Precious Metals Royalty.
Triple Flag, I'm a shareholder of. Triple Flag is the outcome of a commodities business. They've been in the royalty business for a long time. They've augmented the royalties that came out of their commodity-style offtake financing with royalties that they've purchased. I consider Triple Flag and Osisko, in fact, I consider the whole second-tier royalty sector to be attractive at today's valuations.
Okay.
I have them at a 4.
4. Empress Royalty. This one was kind of interesting. You had a private placement in them, did you not?
Yeah, I'm a fan of Empress Royalty. I'm a fan of the young woman who is the CEO, and I'm a fan too of the fact that Empress Royalty is an affiliate, if you will, of Endeavor Financial, which is one of the most important independent financiers in the mining business. What that means is that despite the company's relatively minuscule market cap, sort of $30 million Canadian, they have access to deal flow from a financial intermediary that's probably placed $8 billion in the mining business. I note, too, that Empress, prior to my private placement, had raised about $19 million and had deployed that into royalties that had a net present value of almost $50 million.
Wow.
Which is to say that the internal rate of return on capital thus far deployed has been extraordinary, which I think speaks to the benefit that shareholders get from their affiliation with Endeavor.
Very cool. Okay, moving on. Oh, what number would you give him?
I have them as a 4.
4. Okay. The biggies. Barrick Gold.
Barrick, I also have as a 4. Barrick is my highest rated of the majors. The CEO of Barrick, Mark Bristow, is somebody who I have known professionally and personally for 30 years. I have a high degree of confidence in them. The market doesn't like them because of the political risk, but I would suggest to you, as I have on shows before, that all jurisdictions are risky. I like, too, the focus of Barrick on absolute tier 1 assets, which is to say assets that can produce over 500,000 ounces per year in the best quartile in terms of all-in sustaining costs and in the best quartile worldwide in terms of return on capital employed. They've got a little hate recently because they've moved into another jurisdiction that people find gamey, which is to say Pakistan, to take on the Reko Diq copper gold deposit, which is one of the great undeveloped copper gold deposits in the world, one where I was a shareholder years ago in the company Tethian that made the discovery. So it's a deposit that I know fairly well. I like the movement of Barrick into the copper business. I think that many of the new hyper gold mines in the future will be mines where gold is produced as a byproduct for producing copper. And I think that the copper business will do well, too. So I'm a big fan of Barrick. And as I say, it's my highest rated of the big majors, the major majors.
Okay. All right. As opposed to like Newmont, they've got
Correct.
too many
Correct.
tier 2 ones.
Correct.
Okay. Fresnillo.
Fresnillo, I no longer own.
Okay.
If you are a real silver investor, as opposed to a tourist, somebody who comes in and out of the sector like me, you must own Fresnillo. But I regard the current political situation in Fresnillo, with the evident hostility evidenced by the president of Mexico at Fresnillo in particular, as being challenging. I think that nervousness is probably better expressed at their parent company, Peñoles, which is, in addition to Grupo Mexico, sort of the be-all, end-all, one-size-fits-all Mexican miner. Certainly, the deposit at Fresnillo is a freak of nature.
Yeah.
And their 56% shareholding in Juanicipio with MAG is also spectacular. But I'm concerned about the enmity that exists between the parent company of Fresnillo, which is Peñoles, and the current administration in Mexico.
What are they ranked at right now?
I have Fresnillo as a 5,
Okay.
which is fairly highly ranked for something I don't own.
Yeah.
I had their parent company some years ago, Peñoles, ranked as a 3.
Wow.
Because on a sum of the parts valuation, they were just too cheap. The election of AMLO to the presidency of Mexico changed those rankings.
Political influence. Okay, on to, let's see. Oh, Dakota Gold.
Dakota Gold I have as a 5. Now, this is highly speculative. I own Dakota Gold, I guess, for 3 reasons. The first is Bob Quartermain, who is the chairman and I believe the largest shareholder of Dakota Gold, is somebody who I've made an awful lot of money with over the last 40 years, and somebody who I've become personally very, very, very good friends with. So my access to information, while not illegal or untoward, is that when Bob tells me something, I believe it to be true, which is not the same relationship that I have with many mining company promoters. The mission, too, which was the consolidation of the Homestake mining district in the United States, which has historical production of 40 million ounces and was shut down during a period of the time when the gold was at $250 an ounce, seems to be extraordinarily attractive. It has been true in my life that the best place to look for gold was in the shadow of a head frame of a gold mine. And this is one of the biggest gold mines in American history. I'm attracted too to the fact that the exploration activities that are going on are becoming, it would seem to be, predictive. They have an idea based on the data they have from prior operations that, as an example, a vein or a ledge or a reef will continue, or the different style of mineralization, say disseminated mineralization, is present. And it would seem that the drill bit is verifying rather than disproving their exploration theories. And from my viewpoint, when exploration becomes predictive, you often are at a fulcrum point with regards to the addition of reserves and resources. But make no mistake, this market capitalization reflects both Bob Quartermain's reputation and the reputation enjoyed by the district. This is not cheap. If exploration continues to be successful, I think it's true that the really good stories are never cheap. They always seem to be ahead of themselves in market cap. And this has all the earmarks of something that, if the exploration continues to be predictive, will do extremely well. But buyer beware. This is exploration.
And very speculative. Okay. All right. Reyna Silver.
I own Reyna Silver. Now we're getting into the sort of fringe. I have Reyna as a 5 because I like the people behind it. I like the exploration concepts. But we are really now talking about pure and rank exploration. And speculators who cannot tolerate loss, speculators who don't have either the financial or the psychological wherewithal to take extraordinary volatility, should consider giving this a really wide berth. I own it because I've been a speculator for a long time. Volatility attracts rather than repels me. But I also know for myself that in exploration speculation, I make more wrong decisions than right decisions. When I make a big right decision, 1,000% gain amortizes an awful lot of 25% losers. If you can't stand a 25% loser, you don't belong in stocks like Reyna. You'd never know which ones are going to give you 1,000% and which ones are going to give you a 25 or 30% loss.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Up in Canada, the producer Orezone.
I no longer know enough about them to comment.
Okay. Liberty Gold.
Liberty Gold, I no longer own. I like what they were doing. I continued to be concerned about the grade and what seemed to me, at least, to be the discontinuous nature of the deposit. Doing a plan view, I couldn't tie drill holes together. I was particularly concerned about the resignation of the CEO, who is someone who I held in very high regard. And in my own mind, I sort of thought, well, if Cal Everett is his name, if he believes this is going to be a tier 1 gold deposit, why would he resign? So yeah. I'm gone the name.
Okay. All right. Lumina Gold, they down in Ecuador, Wheaton also placed a bet on them recently, didn't they?
Yes. I am a Lumina shareholder. I follow it. I have it as a 5. This is a monster deposit, but I'm very concerned about the grade.
Okay.
Ecuador is a challenging country in the sense that legislation and precedent around mining and the rule of law hasn't been well established. There are continued political forces that are anti-mining, both at the federal level and at the local level. Drilling permits are cumbersome to obtain. The access to locale, access and egress because of a lack of infrastructure is tough.
You mean like roads and stuff?
Yeah. Okay. This deposit, while being very large, thus far is fairly low grade, given all those challenges. If you get a higher gold price, this thing skates on side very, very quickly.
Okay. All right. Argentina, Abra Silver.
Abra Silver, I made a mistake. I guess I was concerned about that deposit, having owned it in Silver Standard myself years ago. But they've done a spectacular job drilling that thing off. I don't have it ranked. I don't own it myself, but I have to say the skepticism that I would have expressed concerning Abra last year would have been a mistake.
Okay. I-80 Gold.
I-80 Gold I do own. I'm a long-term fan of Ewan Downing, a long fan. If I had a criticism, it would be that it appears that their exploration targets are tier 2, which is say million but not 5 million ounce deposit. I-80 refers to the freeway that goes across northern Nevada and talks about the fact that they explore almost exclusively in the Carlin and Battle Mountain Trend, which is to say they're in real elephant country. Ewan has built and sold 2 previous mining companies that I was a shareholder of, so he's made me money twice before, which is something that I really like. And he's got, he's at this wonderful point in his career where he's still young enough to do stuff. He's still aggressive. He still has legs, so to speak, but he also has experience and he has a reputation. He has his own brand. I have I-80 at a 4, although the stock has done very, very well.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. You touched on it briefly. Mag Silver.
Mag Silver, I have it a 5. I am looking forward to upgrading it to 4 when they have reached nameplate capacity on their mine and mill. The construction is 80% complete, 85% complete. I want to see the thing function at nameplate capacity. I want to see what the AISC is. Then I will re-rate the stock.
To be determined.
Correct.
On the technical charts, it looks pretty good. It's got a double bottom coming up, and so I was kind of excited about it. Okay, we've talked about this one before. SilverCrest. If I'm not mistaken, nameplate capacity would have been at 1,250 tons per day, and their last quarterly report, they got it to 1,160. So they were shy of it, just like 90 tons. Is that accurate, or?
I think it is accurate.
Okay.
And I think from what I understand from the company, they have effectively debottlenecked that and will reach nameplate capacity this quarter. I have it as a 4 with the possibility of an upgrade to 3. By the way, 3s are very rare for me.
Yeah.
To put these rankings in context, I have probably had 9 or 10 number 1 rankings in 35 years of doing rankings.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that one. We caught it when it got down around $5 and backed up the truck. So this one's been really exciting. Okay. Oh, we haven't talked about this one in a while. What happened with any updates on Polymetal? With the invasion of the Ukraine, that did it essentially go to shareholder heaven? Do we have any?
Polymetal, as I understand it, is splitting themselves into 2 companies:
Okay.
a Russian company and a non-Russian company. I'll be able to comment better when I see the disclosure material around that.
Okay.
As a collection of assets, by the way, Polymetal and Polyrus are
the biggest gold mine in the world.
they're unbelievable storehouses of value. Obviously, the political environment that they exist in makes it problematic. If you looked at it technically, you'd probably only own Russian mining stocks.
Yeah. Okay. Aftermath Silver.
Don't know enough to comment.
Okay. Rio 2, they just had a nice bump when they got a tax refund. They kind of petered out. How do you feel about Rio 2?
I own Rio 2. It's a pure exploration stock, really. Well, not an exploration stock. It's partly an optionality stock and partly an exploration stock around a guy I've known a long time and have a high regard for. This is not one for amateurs. This is one that should probably be owned in the professional exploration community, which is to say among geologists, engineers, mining company executives, or full-time speculators like myself. This is one that, if it works, is going to give you 10 or 20 to 1, and if it doesn't work, could easily cost you half your money.
Okay. All right. Southern Silver Exploration. I think they're like number 7 in the world as far as like high grade. Do you know about them?
I don't know enough to comment. The last time I looked at it, I couldn't, again, tie together the deposit particularly well. I couldn't make a deposit out of it. I had a series of hits that I was not concerned about grade, but rather concerned about continuity and width.
Okay. Might be a challenge to pull it out. All right.
Might just
Moving
be
on.
my ignorance, you know.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I love the honesty. Moving on to copper. Have you had a chance to review Arizona metals?
I have not.
Okay.
We're doing work on Arizona metals as we speak. I'm certainly attracted to some of the hits. I'm of mixed minds about Arizona. The governor makes wonderful noises about mining, and I look at the permitting challenges around Resolution, one of the best undeveloped copper deposits in the world, that's been in the permitting process for over 20 years. I think we'll see with South 32 at Hermosa and Rosemont what happens with regards to Arizona permitting. You have to love the infrastructure around mining in Arizona. You have roads, you have access to water. Importantly, you have very skilled miners. You have a wonderful mining service community, both in Phoenix and Tucson. So to the extent that you need specialized parts for a mine, they come from 20 miles away rather than 2,000 miles away. So it has all those advantages. I'm just concerned about Arizona politics and American politics, frankly, as it has to do with development.
Okay. Copper down in Peru, Alta Copper.
Don't know enough to comment.
Okay. Moving on to oil and gas. We talked about Petrobras about 6 months ago. Any new information on that, or are they still going through the moving tectonic salt plates?
The only thing that holds Petrobras right now back, the mobile salt obviously is a challenge. We produce in subsalt or pre-salt areas around the world, so it's a challenge that can be overcome. The bigger challenge for Petrobras, given that it's so cheap, it's unbelievably cheap on a net present value to enterprise value basis, is the concern that the new administration in Brazil, the Lula administration, will preside over the same economic climate that they did the last time that they were in power. Politicians exist to redistribute wealth, and Petrobras is very, very, very wealthy. And so stealing some of the benefit of Petrobras in order to buy votes is something that one needs to be concerned about, not just in Brazil, of course. We have a time-honored tradition of doing that in the United States, too. But I think the only thing really that holds Petrobras back is concern among the international investment community about what the fiscal responsibility of the Lula regime will be like.
Okay. Government risk. That's a common theme.
It is.
All right. If you had to give it a number? 5?
Pardon me?
5 for Petrobras?
I have Petrobras as a 4, simply because it's so bloody cheap.
Yeah, the dividends are okay. Devon Energy.
Devon I have as a 4. I love the fact that the U.S. natural gas market is in some disarray and cheap. The consequence of it being cheap is that we're building fertilizer facilities, we're building LNG export facilities. We're putting in place all the stepping stones of amazing demand and rebound for U.S.-based natural gas. And Devon is sort of the poster child for that.
Okay, we like 4s. Africa Oil.
Africa Oil had some good news and some bad news. The bad news is that they wrote down and disposed of their interest in Kenya, which was the discovery that promoted and propelled Africa Oil to begin with. The good news around that is that they took $400 million out of it before they lost it. They have redeployed that money in Nigeria, and they are an indirect part through shareholdings and affiliates of a series of important discoveries in various parts of the world. I'm beginning to be concerned at Africa Oil about the impending departure of my old friend Keith Hill, who is the CEO. I suspect at some point in time, given that he's only a little bit younger than I, that he will look to do something else with his time, like going fishing from his house in the Keys or something like that. In the meantime, I own the stock and I have it rated as a 4, down from a 3.
Okay. All right. I put this next category as miscellaneous, as just kind of Ecora Resources. I hadn't heard about this until a listener submitted it. I guess they're a royalty and streamer on a lot of base metals.
They are, and again, I don't know enough about them to comment.
Okay. Graphite deposit in Malawi. Sovereign Metals.
Sovereign is graphite and rutile. I'm a very large shareholder. You need to take process risk. You need to take Malawi risk. I'm attracted to deposits that I think could hold 10 billion or 15 billion dollars in situ recoverable reserves and resources. And that describes sovereign. I love the size of the prize. I'm very familiar with the risks. It turns out that there's a whole bunch of different grades and specifications and types of graphite. You need not just to have graphite, but you need to have marketable graphite and marketable rutile. Thus far, people who know more about the graphite business and rutile business than I, including my former partners at Sprott Capital Partners, now SCP Capital Partners, who know a lot about both graphite and rutile, share my enthusiasm for sovereign.
Okay. What number?
I have sovereign as a 4 with a pos. I'm trying to work up the information, the courage to upgrade it. The market capitalization relative to what we see as the in situ value of the reserves and resources is preposterous.
Okay. And fertilizer, Nutrien.
Nutrien I own. I have them as a 5 right now. I think that nutrient prices are in pretty good shape, and I'm not the only one who likes the stock. I've owned it for a very, very long time, and I suspect in my own portfolio that the stock will be sold by my estate.
Okay.
They are a fully integrated nutrient and input company, meaning that they mine the stuff, they process the stuff, and they sell it in their own stores. Often when people try to do 4 or 5 parts of the value chain in one company, they screw up 1 or 2. In the case of Nutrien, it would seem to be seamless. And with 8 billion of us on Earth and population growth continuing, it is only companies like Nutrien, not the World Economic Forum or the government, that feeds 8 billion of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Steel down in Brazil, Vale.
Well, Vale I wouldn't consider a steel company. I'd consider it a mining company.
Okay.
I was going to disclaim much knowledge of steel, but if you're talking about Vale, I don't have to have much knowledge of steel. I have to have knowledge of iron ore, copper, and nickel, which I do.
Okay.
I have Vale as a 5 because I want to see the final results of a judgment with regards to a tailings dam collapse. And I continue to be nervous about the iron price, although the iron price continues to defy me and do well.
Okay, the 2 800-pound gorillas in the room, BHP and Rio Tinto.
I like them both. They are both depressed in price because people are concerned about an upcoming recession, as am I. I think that on an enterprise value to net present value basis, which is to say on a valuation basis, that the valuation of both BHP and Rio has already been in fact factored in a recession. I suspect if we experience a recession, that both of them will decline in price as a consequence of impression or narrative rather than fact. These are very, very, very high quality companies. That isn't to say that they don't make mistakes, but their assets are of such high quality that they weather the mistakes with some ease. And I'm particularly attracted, I guess, to the free cash flow that both companies generate and to their ongoing commitment, both to reinvesting in their own business, which is to say these are not businesses in liquidation, but also their recognition that the shareholders deserve some of those earnings back in the form of generous dividends and share repurchases.
Yeah.
It's difficult for me to understand why a natural resource portfolio wouldn't include those 2 names as a cornerstone. While I think that they will both do very well 5 years from now, when copper shortages in particular rear their ugly head. It's nice to know that you receive enough by way of dividend that the time value of money isn't a concern because they're giving you back the money.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had BHP for several years now, and it just they just pay.
The gift that keeps giving. Yep.
Yes. What numbers would you give them?
I have Rio as a 5. I have BHP as a 4.
Okay. All right. Wrapping up here. What does he think of pulsar helium and just the helium market in general? Do you follow helium?
I'm attracted to the helium market. I'm trying to learn what I can with an old mentor of mine who's taking me by the hand through the helium business. I do not know enough about pulsar or, frankly, any of the individual helium names to rank them.
Okay. All right. Well, awesome. Thank you very much, Mr. Rule. We can go to ruleinvestmentmedia.com if your company was not asked, and you can submit them to Rick Rule himself. He will rank them 1 to 10, and he'll get back to you. You can hear from the expert yourself. Thank you, Rick. Do you have any final closing thoughts?
Only I look forward to having you and as many of your listeners as is possible join us either physically in Boca Raton, Florida, July 23rd through 27th, or as you're doing it, from the comfort of their own home virtually. Remember that this conference, either physical or virtual, and every other investor education product that I have sold for 30 years, comes with a gold-plated money-back guarantee. If you don't think you got your money's worth out of the tuition, call me. I'll refund the tuition.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for tuning in. Hit the like and subscribe, and we will talk to you next time.